Welcome to the lecture number 7 of the course Industrial Engineering. The topic is plant location and location ergonomics. So what is plant location? A plant is a place where men, materials, money, equipment, machinery, etc. are brought together for the manufacturing of products that we know. And what is plant location? It refers to designing a suitable location, area or place where the plant or factory will be start functioning. So plant location is an important decision when starting a new concern or expanding an existing plant. When we expand an existing plant, we can start the new plant or the expansion near the old plant or somewhere else. So that is also an important concern. So the idea here is plant location equal to selection of most suitable geographical site for establishing an industrial facility. So that is the decision we have to make as an industrial engineer. So why it is important? What are the objectives? If we select a good plant location, that will help us for getting suitable raw materials, processing raw materials into finished goods and distributing finished products. So a suitable plant location will ensure that at least these three things are happening. But one point we should understand or we should know, that is, no location can be ideal or perfect for any plant or any manufacturing or service facility. Therefore, a final location is selected by achieving a balance among several influencing factors. So, we are going to see what are those influencing factors we have to consider. Factors affecting plant locations. We have to consider many factors. Some of the factors are listed here. First, we will see the factors in a single slide. Then we will see each factor in detail. So number 1 is nearness to raw material, 2 nearness to markets, 3 availability of labor, 4 availability of fuel and power, availability of water, climatic conditions, land, topography, area and shape of the site, then community attitude, transport facilities, existence of related industries, existence of hospitals, marketing centers, schools, banks, etc., local bylaws, taxes and building ordinances, housing facilities, security, facilities for expansion. So these are some of these. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are some of the most important points we have to consider while selecting a plant location. Now we will see some of these points in detail. So the first one is nearness to raw material. So if the raw materials are very near, what is advantage? Transportation of raw materials from vendors to the plant will be cheap. Sometimes raw materials may be heavy or bulky. Then it is better to start or locate our plant near the raw material available place. And sometimes large quantities of raw materials are required for our industry. Then it is better to place our factory near the raw material available place. and sometimes raw materials may be perishable. If our industry is like that, then it is better to reduce the transport time of the raw materials. So examples of the kind of industries we should consider to be placed near the raw materials are sugar mills, that should be placed near sugar plantations, cement factories where raw materials for cement is easily available, paper mills where the plants which are used for making papers or newspapers, newsprints are available. So nearer to raw material means lower transportation cost. Then nearness to market. Market is the place where we will be selling our finished products. So if the market is near to the plant, that will reduce the cost of finished goods because we can reduce the transportation of the finished goods. So it will help the products to reach the market quickly. It is especially important for perishable products. If the perishable products are our products, then our plant should be located near the market where we are selling the product. So the important consideration to be considered here is the plant location decision involves balancing of cost of transporting raw materials as well as cost of transporting finished products. We have to consider balancing these two criteria. Then availability of labor, that means availability of expert workers, skilled workers or unskilled workers. Plant location should consider the availability of stable labor force, right type of labor, adequate number of workers, labor at reasonable wage rates. And also consider availability of housing for these laborers and the cost of living, that should be not high. Otherwise the laborers or the labor force will not come to live in that place, and the employee-employer relations. So labor availability, labor cost and labor relations influence plant location. Then other points are availability of fuel and power and availability of water. Availability of fuel and power is essential for industrial operations, that we know. Even industries located near sources of fuel may require electricity. Electric power should be available continuously in proper quantity and at reasonable rates. Electricity is one of the most important thing in any kind of factory. Then availability of water. Water is required for processing processing industries, paper industries, chemical industries, then other industrial processes where water is required. So water should be available in adequate quantity as well as of suitable quality. That is important. So industries requiring large quantities of water should be located where water shortage is unlikely. For example, near a chemical industry, that should be usually located near any river or lake. And rice plants are usually located near a river where good quality water is available or fresh water is available. Then site and environmental factors. Climatic conditions are important in some kind of industries where heating, ventilation, air conditioning, etc. are required. Okay, we cannot air condition every industry because some kind of industries like tea plantations where low temperature is important, then tea plantations should be located at low temperature areas. Usually Tea plantations are located in hilly areas where temperature is low compared to other places. And land, topography, area and shape. So here we should consider shape of the size, cost, drainage facilities and other facilities. The land should be a level ground or level field where we have to place our plant at a flat land, then we should choose that area only. Community attitude, that is an important thing, because success of an industry may depend upon the attitude of local people. If the local people are against that particular industry, then no industry can survive there. Local acceptance of the industry should therefore be considered. Then other factors governing plant location are transport facilities, transport of raw materials as well as workers and finished goods. Then another important factor is related industries. For example, a factory producing automobiles, usually there will be many industries around that automobile factory which are supplying raw materials to the automobile industry or automobile factory. So there will be subcontractors of these big automobile companies, so that we can see in all the industrial areas related industries are situated together. Then community facilities are very important. Hospitals, marketing centers, schools, banks, post office, clubs. These are recreational facilities. Those are important for attracting good quality workers. Government and local factors, local bylaws, tax, exemptions, building ordinances, etc. to be considered while locating a plant. Other considerations: housing facilities, security and facilities for future expansion. If we are planning to expand our plant in the near or distant future, then we should have space around the current location for expansion. This is important in the case of hospitals where future expansion will be there. Then hospitals nowadays are located away from the cities where future expansions are possible. So those are the criteria we have to consider while locating a plant. Then another thing we have to consider while locating a plant is, or choosing a plant location, is locational economics. What is that? We are going to see what is the meaning of this locational economics. An ideal plant location is one which results in lowest production cost plus least distribution cost per unit. Therefore, plant location should not be selected based on only one factor. There are many factors that should be considered before choosing a particular plant location. Not only the factors explained earlier, but also the production cost as well as the distribution cost also to be considered while choosing a plant location. The various costs to be considered are cost of the land, building cost. If the land is for lease or rent, then the cost of that. If the building is for rent, the cost of the building. Then cost of equipment and machinery, labor cost, water, power and fuel cost, and freight, incoming and outgoing costs, raw material costs, taxes. These are some of the important factors to be considered. The cost of all these things should be considered while choosing a plant location. Then other factors like indirect cost, which are community attitude, community facilities, housing facilities. These are also important because these are indirect costs for a plant. Then if we have many options to consider, then we have to economically compare all these locations. When two or more possible locations are there, then we have to do comparison, economic comparison among these locations. So we will identify the alternate locations, then estimate the relevant cost for each location, consider qualitative factors and compare the alternatives. Select the location providing the best overall economic advantage. So we will see two examples of how to do a locational economic analysis. See, in this example, you can see this is an example of a transistor radio manufacturing plant. That is the product to be produced, transistor radio. We have to find a location for that. Then what are the factors to be considered for the locational economics? Land cost is shown here for the location 1 and location 2. We have two locations, location 1 and location 2. And the building cost, that is almost the same if we build a building in the two locations. In some of the locations, building a building may be cheaper. And water, the cost is there, power cost is shown, labor cost is shown, and freight, incoming and outgoing costs are shown here, and the fuel cost. Then raw material and other supplies costs are there. Then taxes. So total cost of location 1 is 19,24,000 and for location 2 is 19,60,000. So considering these total cost, location 1 is suitable. But considering indirect cost like community facilities, community attitude, housing facilities, cost of living and community size, there is another comparison shown here. Community facilities, good, excellent, all right, encouraging, very good, good, high, normal, small, medium. So considering the indirect cost, then location 2 is better. So when we consider the cost of direct items as well as the indirect items, location 2 seems to be a better choice overall. Then another example is shown here. See, in this example, three sites are there. Site is X, Y and Z. So total initial investment, total expected sales, distribution expenses, raw material expenses, power and water supply expenses, wages and other expenses are shown here. Community attitude, that is different for different sites, and employee housing facilities are also different for different sites. But here, unlike the previous case, selection is based on a return of rate of return, ROR. So rate of return is calculated using the formula total sales minus total expenses divided by total investment into 100. So whichever option gives the highest ROR will be chosen. So in this case, total sales are taken from the given data, then total expenses, by adding all the expenses we will get total expenses, then the total investment that is shown here as total initial investment. Then when we substitute these values, we will get different values for site X, Y and Z. And we can see that for the site Y, it is the highest. So we will choose site Y. So in this way, we will do economical analysis of plant locations for choosing a particular plant.